Okay. Shalom, shalom. Welcome back to our Bible discourse. Today we've got a topic we're going to cover. So welcome, and I'll pass it over to Brother Mike.
Hey, Shalom. The topic for today is understanding prophetically what's happening with Israel and Palestine. And I thought it would be best since, it would be difficult for people to understand what's happening today if they don't have like a lot of the history backgrounds of like who both sides of the people that are in these in these lands today. So actually the first place I wanted to start is Luke 21:20 through 24, if you can get that for me. Because it was even prophesied that, the Israelites that, Yahushua was going to wouldn't be in Israel until his return. It would be trodden down by Gentiles. So we're going to start there real quick.
Okay, I'm here. Which verse?
Start at verse 20.
Okay. This is the book of Luke, chapter 21, verse 20. And when ye shall see Jerusalem compassed with armies, then know that the desolation thereof is nigh. Then let them which are in Judea flee to the mountains, and let them which are in the midst of it depart out, and let not them that are in the countries enter therein too. For these be the days of vengeance, that all things which are written might be fulfilled. But woe unto them that are with child, and unto them that give suck in those days. For there shall be great distress in the land, and wrath upon his people. And they shall fall by the edge of the sword, and shall be led away captive into all nations. And Jerusalem shall be trodden down of the Gentiles until the times of the Gentiles be fulfilled.
Right. Okay, so the times of the Gentiles. So that would be currently the time we're living in. That's like coming to an end at this point. That would be the time that the Gentiles would be in rulership and they would be in the land of Israel. I actually have a book excerpt that kind of discusses the history of what happened at this point, because this is describing 70 AD, and we know that Revelations was written, years prior. If I remember correctly, my sources, it was like 63 AD, but I could be wrong on that. You can correct me if I'm wrong on that. But so after Revelations was written, this event takes place. So I'm gonna read about like the beginning of it and how it started. So this is out of a book From Babylon to Timbuktu by Rudolph R. Windsor, and I'm at page 84, and it reads: in the year 65 BC, the Roman armies under General Pompey captured Jerusalem. In 70 AD, General Vespasian and his son Titus put an end to the Jews' state with great slaughter during the period of military governors of Palestine. Many outrages and atrocities were committed against the residue of the people. During the period from Pompey to Julius, it has been estimated that over 1 million Jews fled into Africa, fleeing from Roman persecution and slavery. And the slave markets were full of black Jew slaves. So this is a prophecy. Luke 21 and 20 through 24, this is more so like a fulfillment of what happens in Deuteronomy 28 and 64. If you can get that for me, Leo.
Sure. It's the book of Deuteronomy, chapter 28, verse 64. And the Lord shall scatter thee among all people, from one end of the earth even unto the other, and there shall serve other gods, which neither thou nor thy fathers have known, even wood and stone.
Right? So this is like once again, this is very prophetic. Just like it said in Luke 21 and 21 that he would scatter us to the mountains. It also says that we would worship gods of wood and stone, so that neither our fathers have known. So that basically was talking about us going off. And one of those, the wood would represent Christianity. The stone would represent the Kaaba stone. If you can Google the Kaaba stone, just so we can put that up, just so people can have like a visual. And the Kaaba stone would represent like Islam. So.
Right, and this is for people that say, for Muslims to say, oh, we don't worship idols or we don't worship images, and clearly you see people bowing down and worship. That's worship to a stone.
Even, and I don't want to go too far with this, but even that little image to like the left.
Oh, that's at the entrance of the Kaaba stone.
Yeah, even that's supposed to represent like the vagina, and it's supposed to be like for fertility. So there's like a lot of stuff that, and even before like Muhammad came, they worshiped like 364 gods, like one for each day of the year. So
yeah, I guess.
So they've always kind of been going off. So at this point, I wanted to go to Joel 3 and 2 to talk about, because a lot of times people discuss the two-state solution. And that's basically like an agreement between Israel and the Palestinians that they would, split the land. And this also was prophesied in the Bible as well.
All right. Verse 2.
Khan.
It's the book of Joel, chapter 3, verse 2. And I will also gather all nations and bring them down into my valley of Jehoshaphat, and will plead with them there for my people and for my heritage Israel, whom they have scattered among the nations and parted my land.
It's so crazy that one when it says parted my land, that's talking about like the two-state solution where they parted or split the land. But it's so crazy that there's so many verses in the Bible that discuss like his people being scattered abroad into all nations, but that's never brought up in church. Like when the people that call themselves Jews today, when you go through their history, you realize a lot of them were just in like Eastern Europe and Poland and Scotland and like other places like that, Germany, but they weren't scattered into all nations. There's only one people group that's happened to, but we're going to continue to go through that as well. Leo, if you have points, bring it out.
Sure. And another thing, when it says part of their land, that's also talking about, you can talk about this two-state solution, but that's also talking about the Suez Canal, because they literally, that's a man-made canal. So they literally parted the land. So we know Israel extends from the eastern side of the Nile River to the Euphrates. So, and then they just, dug a big trench in the middle of it. So.
No, great point. And actually, that's when the term Middle East was first created, which is a man-made term to like kind of cut it off from Africa.
Right.
So now that we basically understand that those people that are in that land currently aren't Israelites, I think it would be good to go over who they are. So to understand basically who the Jews in Israel are, I want to go to a prophecy, Revelations 2 and 9 and 3 and 9, if you can get those from me.
Mm-hmm. It's the book of Revelations, chapter 2 and verse 9. And I know thy works and tribulation and poverty, but thou art rich. And I know the blasphemy of them which say they are Jews and are not, but are the synagogue of Satan.
Interesting. So it's, it specifies that the Jews would be in poverty, um, and it specifies also that the people that say they are Jews but are not are a synagogue of Satan.
Yep, this is Revelations chapter 3, verse 9. Exact one chapter over. Behold, I will make them of the synagogue of Satan, which say they are Jews and are not, but do lie. Behold, I will make them to come and worship before thy feet, to know that I have loved thee.
Right. So it, once again, it specifies that these people that are in poverty, um, would be the Jews. They wouldn't be people that controlled, the media. It wouldn't be people that, you know, lived in had the highest percentage of millionaires. It wouldn't be them. It would be the people that are in poverty. So that's like another thing to just, point out. At this point, can you get for me Ezekiel 36 and start at verse 3? Because even on this thing, the Bible's specific enough to say who would be in that land in these last days.
Book of Ezekiel, chapter 36, verse 3. Therefore prophesy and say, Thus saith the Lord God, because they have made you desolate and swallowed you up on every side, that ye might be a possession unto the residue of the heathen, and ye are taken up in the lips of talkers, and are an infamy among the people, and an infamy of the people.
Read verse 5.
So 3 through 5 or 3 and 5?
3 through 5. I'm sorry.
There you go. Verse 4. Therefore, ye mountains of Israel, hear the word of the Lord. Thus saith the Lord God to the mountains, and to the hills, and to the rivers, and to the valleys, to the desolate waste, and to the cities that are forsaken, which became a prey and derision to the residue of the heathen that are round about. Therefore, thus saith the Lord God, surely in the fire of my jealousy have I spoken against the residue of the heathen, and against all Idumea, which have appointed my land into their possession, with the joy of all their heart, with despiteful minds, to cast it for a prey.
So, when it says Idumea, this is dealing with a specific nation of people, the Edomites of the Bible. And, we read about them in Genesis 26 or 25, verse 25 through 26.
Right. And so when you just look up the word Idumea, Edom comes up. So the people appear under a Greek form of their old name as Idumeans or Idumaeus, and their new territory was called Idumea or Idumea.
And it's actually kind of revelatory that that's like a Greek new version of their name, because those are the same people groups, but we'll get into that.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so where do you want to go to next? Mike.
My bad, I was on mute. I'll read it. It was Genesis 25.
Okay.
I'm gonna start at verse 23 actually. And the Lord said unto her, 2 nations are in thy womb, and 2 manner of people shall be separated from thy bowels. And the one people shall be stronger than the other people, and the elder shall serve the younger. And when her days to be delivered were fulfilled, behold, there were twins in her womb. And the first came out red all over like a hairy garment, and they called his name Esau. And after that came his brother out, and his hand took hold on Esau's heel, and his name was called Jacob. And Isaac was 80 years old when she bare them. So, this is describing two manner of people that came out of you know, came descended from Jacob, or Yaquab in the Hebrew. And the one person was red all over like a hairy garment. And it continues to talk about how he was like a cunning hunter and a man of the field, and Jacob was a plain man. But there's a reason that it gives his physical description and it doesn't give Jacob's, because Jacob looked like everybody else at the time, and Esau came out red, or his blood showed forth through his skin. From birth. Leo, did you have any points on this that you wanted to?
Oh no, not on this.
Not okay, Karen. So when it talks about his hand grabbing Esau's heel, that's actually prophetic, because that signifies basically Esau would be in rulership until the end of time, and then it would be Jacob's turn. So if you can you grab for me 2nd Ezra 6 and 9?
The book of 2nd Ezra, chapter 6, verse 9. For Esau is the end of the world, and Jacob is the beginning of it that follows. The hand of man is between the heel and the hand. Other question, Ezra's, ask thou not.
So, this once again signifies the rulership that Esau or his descendants would be in until the end of time. And, the hand being between the hand and the heel, that just was to describe, how much longer he would be in rulership. So the next place I wanted to go to is Hebrews 12. Can you get verse 16 through 17? Because there's a reason being, and I wanted to get all of this history in before we, progress to today. But, so people could get an understanding of what's going on. But Esau was rejected by the Most High, as well as his descendants. So from that point on, when they didn't get the blessing, they've always had like a hatred for the children of Israel. So I'm gonna let Leo read this.
This is Hebrews chapter 12.
Yeah, verse 16 through 17.
Okay. Hebrews 12, Hebrews chapter 12, verse 16. Lest there be any fornicator or profane person, as Esau, for one morsel of meat, sold his birthright. For ye know how that afterward, when he had inherited the blessing, he was rejected, for he found no place of repentance, though he sought it carefully with tears.
Right. So, he basically got into a position now where, since he's the most profane is wicked, person on the earth, he cannot repent for those things. So, seeing as he can't repent, he's definitely going to hate God's chosen people because he's been rejected by the Most High. Which we can also show this in Romans. Can you get Romans 9:13?
Mm-hmm. It's the book of Romans, chapter 9, verse 13. As it is written, Jacob have I loved, but Esau have I hated.
Right. So that's plain. And when he's reading this here, he's actually reading this from the Old Testament. So actually I'll read this real quick, just because it correlates with what is talked about in Romans. This is Malachi chapter 1, verse 2. I have loved you, saith the Lord. Yet ye say, wherein hast thou loved us? Was not Esau Jacob's brother, saith the Lord? Yet I loved Jacob, and I hated Esau, and laid his mountains and his heritage waste for the dragons of the wilderness. Whereas Edom saith, we are impoverished, but we will return and build the desolate places. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, they shall build, but I will throw down, and they shall call them the border of wickedness, and the people against whom the Lord hath indignation forever. So a lot of times people will come to that verse in Romans 9 and 13 and say that that's just talking about Esau, but actually it's talking about his descendants as well. Because he was reading Malachi. So just wanted to read that real quick just to point out that, it's talking about his people as well.
Right. And in the Christian church, when they read that Romans 9:13, they will say, oh, that word hated doesn't mean hate as in the opposite of love. It just means simply rejected. I've heard that plenty of times when I was in the Christian church. But they never went to Malachi 1 ever.
No, absolutely not. And matter of fact, let me get this, because if I remember correctly, I want to just check the etymology real quick in Romans, because if I remember correctly, in the Greek, that doesn't even work. But I just wanted to see something. I remember it's Messiah.
I think it's there. I think the word rejected is there. I think let me pull it up. I think they changed the word. I'm like, okay, well, even if that's true, Malachi 1 clears it up because he's quoting from somewhere. So
no, no, I had to look it up just to clarify it. I'm on the Blue Letter Bible right now. The word is Messiah. It's a verb. It means to hate, to pursue with hatred, to detest, to be hated, detested.
Oh, wow. Okay. I guess I was looking at different concordinates. I think I was looking at Strong's concordinates. I didn't look up this one. Let me pull it up real quick. Okay. Format tool. There we go. Romans hated. Okay, here we go. Yep. To hate, pursue with hatred, detest, to be hated, detested. Okay, there we go. So yeah, I guess I was looking at a different translation or different coordinates, but yeah, there you go.
No, yeah, it's all good. Yeah, no, I've heard them try to make that argument before, but yeah, it doesn't even work like with the Greek from what I've studied, from the things I've looked at. Okay, this is the next place I do want to go to. Can you get Genesis 36 and 12? Because now we've established who Esau is, but Esau had descendants, and I think this is a very important place to go to discuss like who the people in the land of Israel are today.
Mm-hmm. This is book of Genesis, chapter 36, verse 12. And Timnah was concubine to Eliphaz, Esau's son, and she bare to Eliphaz Amalek. These were the sons of Adah, Esau's wife.
Khan. So, this is Esau's grandson right here, and it even talks about how the Most High hates them the most. We're gonna go to Psalms 83, but before we go there, I wanted to get Exodus 17 and 16.
It's the book of Exodus, chapter 17, verse 16. But he said, because the Lord hath sworn that the Lord will have war with Amalek from generation to generation.
So, these are people that, the Most High hates the Edomites. We established that in Romans and we established that in Malachi, so Old and New Testament. But when it comes to the Amalekites, they're the worst of the heathen, to the Most High. Even this story kind of exemplifies that as well. If you can get 1 Samuel 15, verse 3, because, the Lord rejected Saul and chose David simply based off the fact that Saul disobeyed him by not wiping them all out. So that shows like the indignation that he has for these people forever.
Verse 13?
No, verse 3.
Verse 3.
1 Samuel 15 and 3. Okay. My bad.
1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 3. You start at verse 2?
Yeah, I actually started verse 2.
Okay. 1 Samuel chapter 15, verse 2. Thus saith the Lord of hosts, I remembered that which Amalek did to Israel, how he laid wait for him in the way, when he came up from Egypt. Now go and smite Amalek, and utterly destroy all that they have, and spare them not, but slay both man and woman, infant and suckling, ox and sheep, camel and ass. Keep reading.
No, Khan. Actually, I was looking for something real quick because when you read that, it brought something to my mind real quick in the book of Obadiah. I'm just trying to find it real quick. I know it's somewhere in Obadiah where it talks about waiting for them in the way. Might be 16. Never mind. So yeah, basically that's just going to show that Amalek, he wanted all of them wiped out. So we've established Esau. Now I think it would be good to go into Ishmael. All right. So can you get Genesis 21 verse 10?
Genesis 21.
Oh, actually, before we go there, I found it finally. What I was looking for was when you read 1 Samuel 15 and 3, and that was talking about like they stood out for them in the way. That correlates with Obadiah 1 and 14, which we know the whole book of Obadiah is about like the Edomites. And verse 14 reads, neither shouldest thou have stood in the crossway to cut off those of his that did escape. That's talking about when we escaped from Egypt, Slovakia. Neither shouldest thou have delivered up those of his that did remain in the day of distress. So that was the verse I was looking for. My bad. I couldn't find it for a minute.
Con. And I also think that's talking about Jerusalem when they were trying to escape from the Romans.
Yeah, no, both times.
Yeah, both times. Gotcha. Con. Okay, where are we headed to next? Oh, hold
Genesis 20. Oh, go ahead.
1 second. This is something that's interesting. Verse 8. And he took Agag, king of the Amalekites, alive, and utterly destroyed all the people with the edge of the sword. But Saul and the people spared Agag, and the best of the sheep, and of the oxen, and the fatlings, and the lambs, and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. But everything that was vile and refuse they utterly destroyed. So Agag is the progenitor of the Agites. So when you see that Haman, the Agite, that's Haman is a descendant from this king, the Amalekites. So I remember some biblical story was trying to say, oh, Haman, he's a Canaanite. And I'm like, come on, guys, you know good and well he's not. He's an Agite, and you look up Agite, it's Agag from the Amalekites. You look up Amalekite, the that's the grandson of Esau, so he's an Edomite. But of course, these are Edomites making this video, so they didn't want to say, "Oh, he's an Edomite," because then that would raise questions like, "Oh, that would start to kill the narrative that that will start to kill the narrative that Esau made up with Jacob, and all is forgiven," which that's not the true narrative. But I just wanted to bring that out.
No, that's good to bring out. I actually had never heard that that they basically made up.
Oh, that Agag is a Canaanite.
Well, no, I haven't heard that either. I knew he was an Edomite.
Oh yeah, no. Okay, so the narrative that Esau made up with Jacob was when, it's in Genesis when Jacob and Esau met back up after all those years and they wept on each other's necks.
Okay, yeah, okay,
so they use
but they'd have to take that way out of context,
which they do. So
I believe it.
Yeah, I mean they ignore all of his sons, all of his descendants. They ignore the Amalekites. They ignore King Herod. They ignore everything. They ignore Malachi 3. They take Romans 9:13 out of context. So yeah, they completely ignore the entire book of Obadiah. I've never heard Obadiah read in church ever.
You probably never will. No. Actually, since you brought that out about Agag, can you get Numbers 24 and 7? Because that actually makes it very clear he's not a Canaanite. Just so nobody ever is like confused by that.
In the book of Numbers, chapter 21. Which verse?
Should be verse 4. Let me look.
It says, "And they journeyed from Mount Hor by the way of the Red Sea to compass the land of Edom."
No, I don't think that's it. My bad. Let me look. Are you in Numbers 24?
Oh, I'm sorry. 20. I was in 21. My bad.
Oh, you're good. Yeah, 24 verse 7.
Okay. 24 verse 7, "He shall pour the water of his buckets, and his seed shall be in many waters, and his king shall be higher than Agag, and his kingdom shall be exalted."
Right. So this is just showing that, Agag was like an Amalekite once again. So hopefully that Canaanite confusion can just go completely away.
Yeah, they don't emphasize it in that video. Like I'll try to pull the video as you're talking. So they don't it's kind of like in it's kind of like made in passing. So it's not like if you blink you'll miss it and it'll just fly over your head. But they knew what they were doing when they made that. They could have just said, "Oh, this is," if they didn't want to draw. If they didn't know or they didn't want to mention he was Edom, they could have just said, "Oh, this is Agag," and then this is a Haman. He's an Agag, and then just move on with the story. But they said it twice, like, "Oh, he's a Canaanite." Yeah. King Agag, yeah, a Canaanite, and blah blah blah. Like, no, he's not a Canaanite. Come on, dude.
Yeah. No, I've seen stuff like that done in videos. It's really deceitful, but while you pull that up, I'll read the next verse.
Yeah, go ahead.
Because since we've established, like, Esau, in this history lesson, I think it would be good now to transition to Ishmael.
Yeah, go ahead. I mean, people can look at it later if they want, but just go ahead. This is it right here. You go to Bible Project. They do like a little animation, like speed drawing. And they go through the story. They go through all the books of the Bible. So,
The Book of Esther. It's one of the more exciting and curious books in the Bible. The story is set over 100 years after the Babylonian exile of the Israelites from their land. And while some Jews did return to Jerusalem, remember Ezra and Nehemiah, many did not. And so the book of Esther is about a Jewish community living in Susa, the capital city of the ancient Persian Empire. The main characters in this story are two Jews, Mordecai and then his niece Esther. And then there's the king of Persia, who's something of a drunken pushover in this story. And then there's the Persian official Haman, the cunning villain. Now, this is a curious book in the Bible, mainly for the fact that God is never even mentioned, not once, which might strike you as kind of odd. I mean,
as they go into it, but like when they mention Haman, they'll start to say that he's an Agite or he's an Agite, and so I mean he's a Canaanite. He's an Agite, which is a Canaanite, and I'm like, that's not true. So
yeah, no, yeah. I mean, I've seen some of the videos. I haven't seen this specific one. Some of the you kind of basically with them, you kind of have to chew the meat and spit out the bones, because some of it'll be correct, but there's like a lot of disinformation kind of mixed in.
Yeah.
To push their narratives, but
yeah, exactly. It's through their eyes. It's through a Gentile Edomite eyes. So, you're not going to get the correct understanding. But, like you said, yeah, chew the meat and spit out the bones. But, all right, so where are we going to next?
Genesis 21, verse 10. Just so now that we've established Esau, we can start to get into Ishmael.
You said verse 10?
Yeah. Genesis chapter 21, verse 10.
It's the book of Genesis, chapter 21, verse 10. Wherefore she said unto Abraham, cast out this bondwoman and her son, for the son of this bondwoman shall not be heir with my son, even with Isaac.
Right. So basically, this is when Ishmael was born. He was rejected, and basically in a very similar fashion how Esau was rejected. Both of them descend from Abraham, but they were both rejected by God. The next place I wanted you to get, just to prove that, and it's crazy because, we went to Romans 9 and 13, but if you go to Romans 9 and 7, this will show about, Ishmael.
Mm-hmm. Romans 9 and 7. Neither because they are the seed of Abraham are they all children, but in Isaac shall thy seed be called.
So, Isaac is... Actually, read verse 8 as well. My bad. I forgot.
That is, they which are the children of the flesh, these are not counted. These are not the children of God. But the children of the promise are counted for the seed.
So once again, that shows that this doctrine of him, dying for everyone, it really is like a paper thin doctrine, because it literally says, in Isaac shall thy seed be called. We know since Isaac was chosen, Ishmael rejected. Isaac had Esau and Jacob. Esau rejected. Jacob chosen. So that's basically just showing you that the line of being chosen goes from Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. So.
Right.
Matter of fact, I'm going to go one more place just to show that Ishmael was rejected, and it shows it. Now we've shown it in the Old Testament. We've shown it one place in the New Testament. Let me show it another place in the New Testament. So can you get Galatians 4? And actually, there's 2 verses in here to deal with it. Can you get verse 23?
Book of Galatians, chapter 4, and verse 23. But he who was of the bondwoman was born after the flesh, but of the free woman was by promise.
Right. So we know through the story in Genesis that Hagar was a bondwoman, and she had Ishmael. So going back to Romans 9 and 7, where it talks about being like a child of the flesh, they are not children of God. This is going to show that Ishmael and his descendants are not children of God. Can you get, same chapter, just verse 30?
Nevertheless, what saith the scripture? Cast out the bondwoman and her son, for the son of the bondwoman shall not be heir with the son of the free woman.
Right. So, this might be hard for like a lot of Muslims because a lot of them really fervently believe that we worship the same God, but we really don't because our God rejected them and their descendants. So,
well,
go ahead. It is what it is.
Well, and here's the thing. Well, he gave them a promise. That's the problem. Like, let's go to.
He absolutely did. Bring that out. Bring that out. That's good.
Like the thing, like they have their promise. It's not the promise. That's the issue. I think it's 17. I think it's 17 or 18. Okay, here it goes. This is Genesis chapter 17 in verse 18. And Abraham said unto God, O that Ishmael might live before thee. And God said, Sarah thy wife shall bear thee a son indeed, and thou shalt call his name Isaac. And I will establish my covenant with him for an everlasting covenant, and with his seed after him. And as for Ishmael, I've heard thee. Behold, I will make him, I have blessed him, and will make him fruitful, and will multiply him exceedingly. 12 princes shall he beget, and I will make him a great nation. But my covenant will I establish with Isaac, which Sarah shall bear unto thee at the same time in the next year. So, I mean, Ishmael did get a blessing. I mean, the Ishmaelites do have a blessing. I mean, that's part of the reason why you see them with gold-plated AK-47s and Lamborghinis in the desert, and cheetahs and in the ride in the front seat, and I taught
absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, I taught at a Muslim school, and the joke is like when this was like college, or it was like a college or whatever, a private college. It's like a lot of international students, but you could tell who the Saudis were because the parking lot would be the BMWs and the Mercedes and the Corvettes. Like they would have better cars than the teachers. So that was the running joke. Like, oh, you could tell who are the Saudis, and you see that here. So yeah, they have their they have their blessing, but the covenant, the promise, is to Isaac and his seed, which we know is Jacob.
No, absolutely. And just to land me back off of that, I actually was holding that. So that's actually really good that you brought that out. I had my Zondervan Compact Bible Dictionary, and on page 256, when it defines Ishmaelite, which would be a descendant of Ishmael, and it says the son of Abraham and Hagar, the 12 sons of Ishmael. Remember, it just said he'll have 12 princes, and his Egyptian wife became princes and progenitors of many tribes. They lived in camps in the desert of northern Arabia, although occasionally some of them settled down as the Nabateans. One other thing it says, the word apparently used in the Old Testament in a wider sense, referring to the nomadic tribes of northern Arabia generally. All Arabs following Muhammad's example claim descendancy from Ishmael. So just wanted to read that just to land me back and establish the point that even in the Quran, they claim that their progenitor is Ishmael. And that's why they have such an affinity and will even claim sometimes that they worship the same God of the Bible, because, you know, it talks about Ishmael in the Quran and it talks about quote unquote Jesus, but their version of Jesus is different than the quote unquote Jesus of the Bible.
Right.
Trying to think what next. Matter of fact, can you get Psalms 83 and start at verse 2 now? Because now that we've kind of established like who Esau is and who Ishmael is, I think it would be good to go into this point. And just for like the audience, Psalms 83, when you read this, this is talking about the enemies of, you know, God's chosen people, the Israelites, and this is talking about the enemies of God directly. So
Psalms chapter 83, verse 1. A song or psalm of Asaph. Keep not thy silence, O God. Hold not thy peace. And be not still, O God. For lo, thy enemies, make a tumult. And they that hate thee have lifted up the head. They have taken crafty counsel against thy people, and consulted against thy hidden ones. They have said, Come, let us cut them off from being a nation, that the name of Israel may be no more in remembrance. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. The tabernacles of Edom and the Ishmaelites, of Moab and Hargarnius, Gabal, Ammon, Amalek, the Philistines with the inhabitants of Tyre. Assur also is joined with them. They have hope in the children of Lot, Salah.
So, you know, when you read that, there's a couple things I want to point out here. The top two nations that are listed as enemies are both descendants of Abraham that were rejected, as well as, even though Edom is listed in verse 6, you know, the Most High hates Amalek, who is his descendant, so much that he even listed Amalek here as well.
Mm-hmm. Specifically.
Exactly. So, like, you know, it goes to show you that, you know, this is a real book, and trying to think where I want to go. Also, another point I did want to make as well, Muhammad, who claimed descendancy from Ishmael, wrote the Quran inspired by the Bible, basically in a way to kind of write themselves in. And I had to do some studying on this myself, but during the week I was able to find, like, if you go into chapter 37 of the Quran, it literally is discussing what happened in Genesis chapter 22, but instead of it talking about Jacob being, like, you know, Isaac offering up, you know, Jacob to be sacrificed, they changed the story to make it Ishmael, to basically write themselves into the story.
Yeah, I remember that.
So yeah, no, that is just like another thing that I wanted to point out, just to show that, you know, the Quran is written as a response to the Bible, and it's written in a way to try to write themselves into like the covenants and the prophecies of the Bible, even though the Bible expressly says that they're not involved in them. Okay, and then this is just another thing to prove it as well. If you can grab Amos 2 and 11, I probably want to finish off like here. We can, you know, pick up the next time on part 2.
Mm-hmm.
But this is just to show, when they call Muhammad a prophet, he he can't be a prophet because he's not a child of Israel, as we've shown for Romans 9 and 7, Genesis 21, like Galatians. He's not a child of God, so he can't be a prophet.
Okay, you ready?
Yeah, you can go ahead.
This is Book of Amos, chapter 2, verse 11. I have raised up your sons for prophets, and your young men for Nazarites. Is it not even thus, O ye children of Israel? Saith the Lord.
Right, so, the Ishmaelites, Edomites, and, Moabites, Hamites, etc., they can't be a prophet because, the Lord is only dealing with his children in that way. So, that's pretty much, I want to stop there because the part 2, I wanted to get into a lot of the history, because there's an even deeper, darker side when it comes to like these people. For example, well, no, actually, I'll save that for next episode. I'll save that for next week.
All right. Well, let me see. Where we go back here? Okay. That ends today's roundtable biblical discourse. Thank you all for coming. Next week, we're going to get more into the history, like Brother Mike said, and this is just laying the premise or laying the foundation for end time prophecy. So when you see in the news things that's going on with Israel and Palestine, and how does that exactly relate to us, and the correct interpretation of that situation with end times prophecy as it relates to the true children of Israel. So I don't have anything else for today. So we're going to go ahead and close out. We wish you all, blessed Sabbath, blessed week, productive week. Stay strong, stay in the faith, and we'll see you next time. Shalom.
Hey, shalom, shalom.